Over 60, top 7 colorful fruits to protect your aging eyes. Let me ask you something. What if I told you the difference between clear vision and a cloudy, fading world could be sitting right there in your fruit bowl? Sounds too simple, right? Some people will laugh and say, "Doc, I've been eating fruit for years and I still wear glasses." Others will insist, "Come on, eyesight loss is just aging, nothing can stop it." But here's the truth that might shock you. Science says otherwise. I've seen men and women in their 70s regain sharper vision. I've seen people who were terrified to drive at night because of glare suddenly confident again. And no, it wasn't because of surgery, expensive supplements, or magic pills. It was because of food, the right food. Here's the part no one tells you: certain colorful fruits are loaded with compounds that act like built-in sunglasses for your eyes. They filter out harmful blue light, strengthen the tiniest blood vessels in your retina, and protect against the silent damage that robs millions of older Americans of their sight every single year. One of these fruits even has the power to bring back night vision. Yes, you heard that right, night vision. So let me be clear. If you're over 60, what you're about to learn could mean the difference between years of fading eyesight and years of enjoying sunsets, reading books, seeing your grandkids' faces, and living life in full color. But before we get into the list, I need you to do something. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who wants to keep their vision strong, and subscribe to the channel. Every single click helps us keep bringing you science-backed, life-changing health advice. Because in the next few minutes, we're counting down the 7 fruits that can protect your eyes better than you ever imagined. And I promise you this, number 1 will surprise you. In fact, it might just change the way you look at the world forever. Why our eyes age, and why colorful fruits are the answer. Think of your eyes as a camera. Over time, the lens can become cloudy, which we call cataracts. The macula, the tiny central part of the retina that gives you sharp detail, may weaken, leading to macular degeneration. Blood vessels grow fragile, raising the risk of diabetic retinopathy or glaucoma, and tear production slows, leaving your eyes dry and irritated. According to the National Eye Institute, by age 65, 1 in 3 Americans has some form of vision-reducing disease. By 80, more than half will experience cataracts, and nearly 11 million will be living with age-related macular degeneration. Why does this happen? The answer lies in oxidative stress. Every day your eyes are bombarded by sunlight, pollution, cigarette smoke, and even blue light from screens. These exposures create free radicals, unstable molecules that damage retinal cells. Imagine tiny sparks burning holes in delicate fabric. That's what happens to your vision over time. But there is hope. Your body is equipped with antioxidants, compounds that neutralize free radicals before serious harm is done. And the richest sources of antioxidants aren't found in pills, they are in the colorful fruits nature provides. Lutein and zeaxanthin, found in yellow and green fruits, act like natural sunglasses in your macula. Vitamin C, abundant in citrus, strengthens blood vessels. Anthocyanins, the purple pigments in berries, improve circulation to the retina. And beta-carotene, the orange in mangoes and papayas, converts into vitamin A, crucial for night vision. As I often tell my patients, the more colors on your plate, the more protection for your eyes. Science backs this up. A 2019 University of Buffalo study of nearly 1,800 older adults found that those who ate the most colorful fruits had a 36% lower risk of advanced macular degeneration. Research published in JAMA Ophthalmology showed that seniors who ate just 2 servings of citrus fruits per week had a 20% lower risk of cataracts. And a 2021 meta-analysis revealed that adding berries 3 to 4 times per week reduced oxidative retinal damage by nearly 30%. In my own practice, I've seen this firsthand. One patient, Robert, 72, struggled with night driving because headlights looked like exploding stars. He rarely ate fruit. After adding blueberries, oranges, and kiwis into his weekly meals, his confidence behind the wheel returned in a matter of months. Another patient, Linda, 68, who loved sewing, noticed her vision sharpening again after adding papaya and mango to her diet. She told me she could enjoy the colors in her quilts like she used to. So let me ask you, when was the last time you thought about what your eyes really need? Too often, people wait until problems appear. But the truth is, colorful fruits are simple, accessible tools to help protect your sight. Eat the rainbow, choose whole fruits over juice, and make it a daily habit. Every serving is like putting on an extra pair of invisible glasses, shielding your vision for the years ahead. Fruit number 7, oranges, the citrus shield. The humble orange is often praised for its role in boosting the immune system, but its benefits for eye health are just as important. Rich in vitamin C, oranges strengthen the tiny capillaries that feed the retina and support collagen, the protein that helps keep the cornea and lens clear and flexible. Without enough vitamin C, eyes become more vulnerable to cataracts and macular degeneration. Research backs this up. A 10-year study from the European Eye Research Institute found that adults who ate an orange daily had a 33% lower risk of developing cataracts. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition also reported that high vitamin C intake lowered the risk of age-related macular degeneration by up to 25%. Even Harvard researchers found that vitamin C slowed the progression of cataracts, delaying the need for surgery. For many of my patients, that means a brighter, more independent future. I remember Marjorie, age 71, who came to me worried because her mother developed cataracts in her mid-60s. Her diet was heavy on bread and coffee and almost entirely lacking in fruit. I encouraged her to start small, adding just one orange to her breakfast each day. 4 years later, her exams show no cataracts forming, and she says her energy is better than it's been in years. Another patient, Richard, thought he was doing well by drinking orange juice daily, but the high sugar content was causing spikes in his blood sugar and leaving his eyes feeling dry and tired. Once he switched to whole oranges instead, his evening vision improved and his eye discomfort eased. The lesson here is simple. Whole oranges give you the full package: vitamin C, fiber, hydration, and natural flavonoids that reduce inflammation. Juice, on the other hand, strips away the fiber and adds unnecessary sugar. Enjoying an orange as a snack, tossing slices into a spinach salad, or blending it with carrots and ginger for a refreshing smoothie are easy ways to protect your vision. So let me ask you this. When you see an orange, do you think of it as just a sweet fruit or as a shield for your eyes? For anyone over 60, the answer could make all the difference in how clearly you see the world in the years ahead. Fruit number 6, blueberries. The retina's bodyguards. Blueberries may be small, but they carry big protection for aging eyes. Their deep blue color comes from anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants that strengthen the walls of tiny blood vessels in the retina and improve circulation. This is especially important for older adults with diabetes or high blood pressure, where fragile vessels can leak and cause retinopathy. By protecting these delicate structures, blueberries help preserve vision and reduce strain. Studies confirm their value. Research published in Nutrients showed that seniors who ate blueberries daily for 3 months had noticeably better night vision and less eye fatigue. Tufts University also reported that people who consumed blueberries regularly had slower oxidative damage in the retina, giving their eyes extra resilience against aging. I've seen these results in my own practice. Mr. James, 69-year-old retired mechanic, told me his eyes burned and blurred after just 20 minutes of reading. Books had always been his escape, but he was ready to give them up. I encouraged him to add blueberries to his meals 3 times a week. 6 weeks later, he proudly shared that he had finished 2 novels with no discomfort. Another patient, Sarah, 74, struggled with glare while driving at night. After making blueberries part of her breakfast routine, she noticed headlights were less blinding and her eyes felt less strained at the end of the day. Incorporating blueberries is simple. Sprinkle them over oatmeal, stir them into Greek yogurt, or blend them into a smoothie with spinach and banana. Frozen blueberries work just as well as fresh and make it easy to enjoy their benefits all year round. So here's something to think about. We take calcium for our bones and watch our cholesterol for our heart. But how often do we consider what our eyes need? A few handfuls of blueberries each week may be one of the easiest steps you can take to protect your vision and keep enjoying the everyday pleasures of life, from reading a good book to driving at dusk, with clarity and confidence. Fruit number 5, papaya, the tropical vision saver. Papaya may not be the first fruit people think of for eye health, but it is truly a powerhouse. Bright and tropical, papaya is loaded with beta-carotene and vitamin A, nutrients that are essential for night vision. Without enough vitamin A, the retina struggles to detect light, which explains why deficiency can lead to night blindness and difficulty seeing in dim conditions. Papaya also contains zeaxanthin, a pigment that, along with lutein, settles directly in the macula, the part of the retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision. These pigments act like natural sunglasses inside your eyes, filtering harmful blue light and reducing glare, which becomes more important as we age and become more sensitive to headlights, screens, and bright sunlight. Research backs up these benefits. A study in the Journal of Food Science showed that seniors who ate papaya regularly reduced oxidative stress markers by 25% in just 8 weeks. Another study linked carotenoid-rich fruits such as papaya with a lower risk of age-related macular degeneration, a leading cause of vision loss. These findings highlight that papaya is more than just a sweet tropical fruit. It works as a natural protector for aging eyes. I've seen this in my own practice. Teresa, a 74-year-old patient, told me she had given up driving at night because headlights made everything blurry. Her diet was mostly bread, cheese, and little fruit. I suggested adding half a papaya with a squeeze of lime 3 times a week. 2 months later, she returned with a smile, saying, "Doc, the glare is so much better. I feel safe behind the wheel again." Another patient, Arthur, who loved fishing at dawn, stopped his early outings because low light made him uncomfortable. After including papaya in his routine, he regained the confidence to get back on the water before sunrise. Adding papaya is simple. You can eat it fresh with lime or lemon, blend it into smoothies with coconut water, or toss it into a fruit salad with pineapple and mango. Frozen papaya works well too and keeps its nutrients. The question is, if a fruit this easy to add could help you see better at night, reduce glare and keep your vision sharper, why wouldn't you make it part of your diet? Papaya isn't just a tropical treat, it's a vision saver for anyone over 60. Fruit number 4, red grapes. The circulation boosters. Red and purple grapes are more than a sweet snack. They are rich in resveratrol, an antioxidant well known for supporting heart health but also highly protective of the eyes. Resveratrol reduces inflammation, improves circulation to the retina, and slows the growth of abnormal blood vessels, a major issue in age-related macular degeneration that can rob older adults of their central vision. A 2020 study in experimental eye research showed that resveratrol supplementation improved retinal thickness and reduced oxidative damage in older adults at risk for macular degeneration. Another study from UCLA found that eating grapes daily enhanced antioxidant activity in eye tissue and protected against oxidative stress, offering a simple but powerful way to safeguard vision. I've seen these effects firsthand. Harold, a 78-year-old patient and avid gardener, came to me worried because the colors of his roses looked dull and faded. I suggested he add a cup of red grapes to his lunch 3 times a week. 3 months later, he returned, smiling, saying, "Doc, the reds and purples in my garden are back. It's like someone polished my glasses." Another patient, Evelyn, 70, who loved painting, found her colors losing their vibrancy. After making grapes her regular afternoon snack, she told me she could once again appreciate the brightness of her paints, making her art come alive in ways she thought she had lost. Adding grapes to your routine is simple. Eat a handful of red or purple grapes as a midday snack, freeze them for a refreshing summer treat, or toss them into a chicken salad for a sweet and savory balance. You can even blend frozen grapes with spinach and blueberries for a smoothie packed with antioxidants. The question is, if something as easy as enjoying grapes a few times a week can help preserve your vision, keep your colors vivid, and protect your retina, why wouldn't you make it part of your diet? For anyone over 60, grapes are not just a fruit. They are circulation boosters that help keep the world in focus. Fruit number 3, kiwi, the green eye protector. Kiwi may look small and unassuming, but it is packed with nutrients that make a real difference for aging eyes. This fruit is one of the richest natural sources of lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 golden antioxidants that build up in the macula and act like natural sunglasses. They filter harmful blue light, cut down glare, and protect the retina from UV damage. Kiwis also provide more vitamin C per ounce than oranges, which helps strengthen the tiny blood vessels that nourish the eyes and slows the development of cataracts. A landmark study published in the Archives of Ophthalmology found that seniors who ate 3 servings of kiwi per week lowered their risk of advanced macular degeneration by 36%. Another study in nutrients confirmed that diets high in vitamin C and carotenoids, both abundant in kiwi, were strongly linked to healthier retinal tissue and less age-related vision decline. I've seen this play out with my patients. Clara, age 66, loved crossword puzzles, but had given them up because the letters blurred after just 15 minutes. I suggested she add kiwi to her breakfast 3 times a week along with oatmeal and walnuts. 2 months later, she came back smiling, proud to say she had finished her Sunday crossword for the first time in years. Another patient, Leonard, 72, had struggled with glare while driving at dusk. After he began adding kiwi to his smoothies, he noticed he could drive more comfortably in the evening and felt safer on the road. Adding kiwi to your routine is simple. Slice it into yogurt or cereal, blend it into a smoothie with spinach and banana, or just eat it plain, seeds and all, since the pulp carries much of the nutrition. Frozen kiwi works well too and makes it easy to enjoy year-round. The real question is, if something as small and simple as a kiwi can help preserve the clarity of your vision, why wouldn't you make it a regular part of your diet? For anyone over 60, this fruit is more than a snack. It is a green eye protector that keeps the world sharp and bright. Fruit number 2, mango, the golden defender. Mangoes are more than a sweet summer fruit. They are a golden defender of eye health. Rich in beta-carotene and vitamin A, they provide the essential nutrients your retina needs to function properly. Without enough vitamin A, the light-sensing cells in your eyes cannot capture images effectively, which is why deficiency often leads to night blindness and difficulty seeing in dim light. Mangoes also contain zeaxanthin, a pigment that acts like a natural filter against harmful blue light from screens and sunlight. This protection becomes increasingly important with age, when glare sensitivity grows and the risk of macular degeneration rises. A 2018 study in the Journal of Nutrition and Aging found that seniors who ate mangoes at least twice a week had better contrast sensitivity, allowing them to see objects more clearly, especially in low-light conditions. I've seen this benefit in my patients. Samuel, a 70-year-old painter, was frustrated because the colors on his canvas looked dull. After adding mango to his diet 2 or 3 times a week, he returned a few months later, smiling, telling me his blues and yellows looked vivid again, like painting in high definition. Another patient, Margaret, 68, who loved gardening, noticed the flowers in her yard appeared brighter and more defined after she began eating mangoes regularly, bringing new joy to her favorite pastime. Enjoying mango is simple. Fresh slices make a healthier dessert than cake or cookies, and blending mango with papaya and pineapple creates a tropical smoothie packed with antioxidants. Dicing mango into a salsa with red peppers, onion, and lime adds color and flavor to fish or chicken dishes. Frozen mango chunks are another easy option and retain much of their nutrient value year-round. The real question is, if something as simple as eating mango can sharpen contrast, reduce glare, and restore vibrancy to your vision, why wouldn't you add it to your routine? For anyone over 60, mango is more than a fruit. It is a natural ally for clearer, brighter sight. Fruit number 1, blackberries, the night vision enhancers. Blackberries are one of the most powerful fruits for aging eyes, especially when it comes to seeing clearly at night. Their deep purple color comes from anthocyanins, antioxidants that reduce oxidative stress and improve blood flow in the smallest vessels of the retina. These tiny capillaries are essential for night vision, and when they weaken with age, it becomes harder to adjust to darkness or see in dim light. By strengthening circulation and reducing cellular damage, blackberries help the eyes stay sharp long after sunset. Studies confirm these benefits. Research published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that seniors who consumed anthocyanin-rich fruits like blackberries had significant improvements in night vision and reported less glare when driving in the dark. Another review in Molecular Nutrition and Food Research showed that anthocyanins improved retinal function and reduced vascular damage linked to age-related vision decline. In addition to anthocyanins, blackberries are also rich in vitamin C, which supports collagen in the cornea, and vitamin K, which promotes healthy blood circulation. I've seen the impact in my practice. Mr. Roberts, age 75, had given up driving at night because headlights felt blinding and unsafe. I suggested adding half a cup of blackberries to his breakfast 3 times a week. Within 10 weeks, he was back on the road, telling me proudly he could drive to his granddaughter's evening recitals again without fear. Another patient, Elaine, 71, loved going to the theater but found the glare from stage lights unbearable. After making blackberries a daily snack, she told me she could finally enjoy performances without straining her eyes. Blackberries are easy to enjoy and work well in many meals. Mix them into Greek yogurt with chia seeds, sprinkle them over whole grain pancakes, or keep a bag of frozen blackberries in your freezer for smoothies and snacks year-round. They hold on to their nutrients even when frozen, making them practical as well as powerful. The real question is, if something as simple as a handful of blackberries can help restore confidence at night, reduce glare, and keep vision clearer, why not make them part of your routine? For anyone over 60, blackberries are more than a fruit. They are natural night vision enhancers that help keep life bright even after dark. So there you have it, 7 colorful fruits that can protect your eyes and keep your vision stronger as you age. Oranges, blueberries, papaya, red grapes, kiwi, mango, and blackberries. Each one is powerful on its own, but together they create a shield, strengthening your retina, fighting glare, boosting night vision, and keeping the world around you sharp and vibrant. And here's the bigger lesson. Aging doesn't have to mean losing your eyesight. Every bite of color you put on your plate is like an investment in your future. These simple choices can mean the difference between struggling to see the faces you love or enjoying every detail in full clarity for years to come. Now I want to thank you for spending this time with me. I hope this video opened your eyes, literally and figuratively, to just how much power you have over your own health. If you found this helpful, do me a favor, hit that like button, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support is what allows us to keep making these life-changing videos. And don't go anywhere, we've got more coming. In our next video, I'll be diving into another surprising set of foods that can help you stay strong, sharp, and independent well into your later years. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of your eyes, and remember, the choices you make today are the vision you'll have tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.